Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Saturday morning sit down.
For the past few months, Project Brazen has been tracking a $1.5 billion criminal enterprise that spans from Cambodian scam centers to Thai boardrooms to New York penthouses. The investigation is revealing how dirty money flows through Southeast Asia's financial systems with the protection of political elites in the region. It is a huge story that Tom Wright and Project Brazen has been working on. Tom joins us in the studio now to tell us more about it. Good morning, Tom. Welcome.
Good morning.
This is huge. So set it up for us. To kind of take us back to the beginning of what this is and what it means.
Well, this story came on our radar a couple of years ago when a South African called Benjamin Mauerberger, who lives in Bangkok, bought a very expensive plane for a Cambodian called Yim Leek. And we were like, wow, why is he buying a multi-million-dollar plane for this Cambodian? We all know what goes on in Cambodia, right? Scam centers, drugs, you name it, slaves. You know, it's a modern mafia state. Wrote a story about it. I have a film and TV company, so it's a bit of a sideline for us. I used to work for the Wall Street Journal. Wrote a story about this plane. And then this guy, Mauerberger, this South African, comes back on our radar again just a couple of weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, buying a plane for Thaksin Shinawatra, who, of course, was the former prime minister of Thailand, one of the most powerful people in Thailand. At the time, his daughter was prime minister. So why the hell is this South African guy, white guy, living in Bangkok, buying a $60 million Bombardier G7500 for Thaksin Shinawatra? And that's how this story came.
And these are not allegations. You've seen the paperwork. This transaction actually took place.
These are not allegations. No, this happened. I work for the Wall Street Journal, which has these very high standards.
Of course.
And that's how I was trained. I work for myself now. As I said, mainly doing film and TV, but everything that we've reported on this story on our whale hunting blog is true.
Now, you are the man, and we'll get into this later, who sort of broke the global story on Joe Low. This guy, and I've been doing a lot of reading about him.
For the 1MDB scandal.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of reading, thanks to your wonderful work on your website, about this elusive South African mastermind, Benjamin Mauerberger. Tell us about him and his background, because that's a movie in itself. But
is a movie.
Let's start with him.
Well, this is how the world really works, right? Which is, most of us don't see it every day. There are these very powerful people in politics. In the case of Joe Low, it was Najib, the prime minister of Malaysia, and Joe Low was his bagman, helped to steal billions of dollars from the 1MDB fund. In this case, Benjamin Mauerberger is this South African guy who is a front for what is a very, very powerful Cambodian and Thailand network. The money that these guys, in the 1MDB case, the money was stolen from a fund which was supposed to help the Malaysian people. In this case, the money is scammed from Asians, Singaporeans actually, and Americans. These are these romance scams you've heard about, these love scams. People sitting in these scam factories in Cambodia, calling up people, getting them to fall in love with them, getting them to invest their life savings in crypto. That's where this money's coming from.
So you say he's a front. What's your proof for that? What do you mean he's a front for?
Well, when the money is stolen from Singaporeans, from Americans, from wherever, it's stolen typically these days in crypto and in digital currencies. It then has to be washed through the global financial system. That's where Mauerberger comes in. We know this because we've been looking at all the records. Mauerberger has been using fronts, that is his wife, other people, actually some very senior Thai politicians, to set up companies in Singapore, in Thailand, and then to buy up financial companies and crypto companies, which allows him then to wash, hundreds of millions of dollars from these scams into the global financial system.
And just explain who his wife is. She's quite prominent as well, right?
Yeah, his wife is called Catalia Bivor. She owns many of the companies. She's a front for Benjamin Mauerberger, so she owns many of the companies. Very complicated story, but just to simplify it for the listeners, criminal enterprise generating hundreds of millions of dollars in cash and in crypto, and then you need to get it around the world. One of the ways that Mauerberger has done this is he has helped to set up a company in Singapore, or he's behind a company in Singapore called Capital Asia Investments, which is run by two Singaporeans. And that company has been buying hundreds of millions of dollars in Thai stocks, a finance company and an energy company. And, those proceeds are totally unexplained. Those two guys who own that company, just a few weeks ago, or a few years ago, were just wealth managers in Singapore. Suddenly they're buying hundreds of millions of dollars of stocks. So that's how Mauerberger is useful to the Thai politicians and the Cambodian princelings who are behind all of this. He is a master money launderer, and he knows how to move the money.
And just to add, Business Times did a story on that Singaporean link. And was there any response from the Singaporean side?
I don't know what the Singapore government's doing at all.
I meant from the company side, sorry.
From the company side, no
agent.
response. I mean, obviously, I've written to them and asked them for comment, no. And the Business Times did a great story where they added up all the purchases that Capital Asia Investments has been making. And it was like 700 million Singapore dollars. And if you look at their website, you can go on it now. Capital Asia Investments, you have like 2 employees, it looks like. Both of them, used to be wealth managers. So it's totally unexplained.
Yep. Can I just mention that Benjamin Mauerberger has posted on some social media, I believe, denying any of these charges, saying that you have not done a good job and that you don't have the right information. He's threatened legal action, etc. He is categorically denying that he is involved in any of this. Is that correct?
That's totally correct. Not only that, the Deputy Prime Minister, Thamarat Prampao of Thailand, has called on Interpol to issue a red notice, or called for my arrest under an Interpol red notice. Now, if we go back to the 1MDB scandal, this is exactly what happened back then. Najib was in power, Prime Minister of Malaysia. He called for my arrest. They said we got everything wrong. Jolo said, I didn't do anything wrong. That's exactly what you'd expect in these situations. But take it from me, we don't report this stuff unless we're 100% got the goods, documents, inside sources. Everything.
How did the Thai official, I believe it's the deputy finance minister, because you had not originally named him in your reporting, right? But then the Thai media called him out. Tell us about that connection.
Well, somebody gave us a photo of this Benjamin Mauerberger guy meeting with Thaksin Shinawatra, the former Prime Minister of Thailand.
I've seen that photograph. It's available online on your website.
So we were the first people to publish that, exactly, and we were leaked it by somebody. This was back in April, this meeting, and it was a photograph from Gaeson Plaza in Bangkok of this meeting. This is around the time when Mauerberger is buying Thaksin the $60 million jet. The reason he's buying him that jet, by the way, is so he can have political cover to get away with all of the stuff he's doing. This is what we call state capture. It's when a country is taken over by criminals, right, to the very highest level. And the Deputy Prime Minister is also in the picture with his back to the camera. We didn't know who it was. We didn't name him. But some Thai journalists, brave ones, by the way, because in that country the defamation laws are terrible and they're used against the free information, recognized him and named him. And he was then dumb enough to say, yes, that's me, and start to threaten everyone with legal cases. Why is he doing that? No, I didn't say anything about him. Why is he asking for my arrest? Well, probably because he's deeply in bed with Benjamin Mauerberger, and he's a deputy prime minister. So that's what I take from the interaction.
So I saw the allegations or the claims against you. What's the latest on that between Mauerberger, the Deputy Prime Minister, and yourself and your organisation? What's the latest on that now?
Well, it's all noise. We haven't received any legal threats. So this is a desperate attempt by people, the last-ditch attempt by them to make it all go away in Thailand. Our stories have been taken up by a parliamentary commission and another very, very brave politician from the opposition in Thailand, citing our work. The Deputy Prime Minister has threatened him with defamation suits, much more dangerous in Thailand, and the work that they're doing in Thailand to bring this to light is also much more dangerous for the Deputy Prime Minister and all the other people involved. We should say, by the way, we've also been able to confirm that Mauerberger is the focus of a criminal investigation from the Department of Homeland Security in America. So he's on their radar. Because of this money laundering network that he's running, which, the victims are they're Singaporeans. I mean, we've seen that the Singapore government is very worried about the targeting of Singaporeans with these romance scams. Mm-hmm. These go on for months, by the way, where they lure you in with, look how much money you can make in crypto. I'm a beautiful woman or a man, and I've got this amazing Mercedes, and you should invest in crypto, and you make a little bit of money. You invest your life savings, you get greedy, and everything's fake.
Yeah.
It's then washed. These guys were very clever. They actually have teamed up with a crypto company called Qcoin. KuCoin.
That's KU, isn't it?
KuCoin.
Yeah.
I mean, listeners may have heard of them. They're here in Singapore, and KuCoin was fined $300 million in the US last year for allowing massive amount, $9 billion of corrupt money to run through their exchange. Okay,
Wow.
KuCoin is basically allowing for corrupt, and these guys teamed up with KuCoin. Because they need ways to, when they've stolen this crypto from people, they need ways to wash it around. So it's a gargantuan problem.
And coming back to Mauerberger, the stories are almost difficult to come up with. He also uses aliases, which is not that uncommon. But tell me if I've got this right, Tom. He uses different people to play himself. I saw photographs at a launch it's on your whale watching site, isn't it? Tell us about this extraordinary story where he employs somebody else to be him.
Like a doppelganger or something?
Yes. Well, we're not whale watching, we're whale hunting.
Well hunted, yes. Well hunted, yes.
So if you want to follow all of this, go check us out. We're whale hunting and Project Brazen. If you stick whale hunting and Project Brazen into Google, you'll come up with us. And you can sign up for free with your email. We're not even charging for this.
I paid to sign up. But
you paid to sign up. You can pay. If you like people holding corrupt people and politicians to account, you can sign up with a bit of money. But going back to your question, that we're not 100% sure of this, but he's been in his statement to us. He said, "Look, there was this fraud that we talked about in Thailand, a boiler room fraud, which is this guy Mauerberger before he became this giant fraudster." Working with the top Cambodian and Thai politicians, and it's just to say, he's got $250 million in super yachts, $250 million in jets. $20 million apartment in Manhattan. So this is a big guy. But before he did this, back 5 years ago, he was a boiler room operator.
Just explain what that is.
So boiler rooms are where, you sell fake penny stocks to mom and pop investors, So,
Wolf of Wall Street stuff.
Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort stuff. You call them up, you say, hey, I've got this stock. You should really get in on it. It's going to go to the sky. And then, you've bought it and the whole thing collapses afterwards and everyone loses their money apart from you because you were the promoter of the stock. And there was a boiler room incident in Thailand where a guy, an American actor from China, was brought into Bangkok to pretend to be the CEO of this company to get all these ties to invest. And his fake name was Benjamin Berger, which was one of Mauerberger's aliases. Huh. And we were able to find that American actor, and he's called Lawrence Feldman. And so he's on LinkedIn, and you can check him out. And he just
did.
He was probably just paid a few $1,000s and a free holiday in Bangkok and didn't ask too many questions. He hasn't answered our questions, so I don't know. But we're not sure whether that's Mauerberger. Mauerberger claims it's not him. But it's interesting because it shows you that this master criminal has gone from being a stock scammer in Bangkok. And he has a long history going back 25 years to stock scams. In Bangkok was a place, you might have seen, the older listeners might have seen the movie Boiler Room with Vin Diesel and Ben Affleck, that was really the 25 years ago, that movie, boiler rooms were a big thing. It was a big way of scamming money. Today, love scams, crypto scams, same thing, same psychology, and they're very good at it.
In this current scam, Tom, we're talking to Tom Wright, who is the co-founder of Project Brazen, an investigative journalist. When you're looking at this current case, does it have anything to also do with the scam centers in Cambodia? We know that there's these huge compounds, 20, 30,000 people sometimes can be in these that are lured in by promises of making money and things. So is this part of that network as well, or what's the connection?
It's exactly part of that network, and I'll show you how we were able to prove it. But yeah, we started by seeing the jets, the yachts, the $100 millions washing through Singapore's financial system, secretly going into purchasing some of Thailand's biggest companies. We saw all of that. And then we're like, whoa, that's coming out of Mauerberger's connection with a Cambodian businessman called Yim Leek. Now, Yim Leek is from one of the most powerful families in Cambodia. His sister is married to Hun Sen's son, the former Prime Minister Hun Sen's son. And then we were able to find that Yim Leek's company, BIC Bank, BIC Bank it's called, was connected to some of the Chinese-financed scam centers in Cambodia. So we should say, the U.S. Congress and U.S. Treasury says that, $10 billion a year of American savings are lost to these scam centers in Cambodia. And also Singapore MAS is very worried about this, if they've said about this. we were able to find that Yimlik's big bank is connected to some of the sanctioned, US-sanctioned and UK-sanctioned Chinese-owned companies that do the scam centers in Cambodia. So we're able to link them. We actually have a story just came up this morning on whale hunting about this, written by Jacob Sims, who's one of the world's experts on this, a Harvard and transnational crime expert. So we're broadening the way we look at it. We've got experts writing on our site. And, we're just hoping more journalists and more governments jump in on investigating this. So the Business Times has done a great job. The Straits Times had a fantastic story about scam centers and Singapore just 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Right? So there's some fantastic reporting going on, but this story is huge. It's like 1MDB 0.20,
The thing that fascinates me from a novelist's point of view is, how does a Mauerberger exist? How does he get into that world? Is it just a Jolo thing where you go to college with the right people? A kid doesn't grow up and say, I'm going to one day do this. How does he get to those levels of power, influence, and so on?
Well, we're still reporting on it, but he grew up in Cape Town in South Africa from a wealthy family. His family, I think his grandfather was one of the people who founded one of South Africa's famous retailers, a bit like a Woolworths or a W.H. Smith.
So he's not from a poor background?
No, he's not from a poor background. He went to high school in Cape Town, a very prestigious school there. Didn't go to college. And then he moved to Bangkok, and he's around my age. I think he's like 47. And Bangkok around then in the early 2000s, after the Asian crisis, it really was a place of boiler room operators.
It was a Wild West.
Yeah. I mean, I was a young journalist working in Asia. I actually lived in Bangkok around just a little bit earlier than that. And you'd see all these white guys in shady suits and ties. And, if you haven't seen Boiler Room, go watch it.
It's a great film.
It's a great film. And, that was the era of boiler rooms, and Bangkok was the locus of it because, lawlessness, and they weren't really targeting ties, but they were based in Bangkok, and what they do is they would call, New Zealand, grannies, grandpas, Australia, all of this. And he got caught a few times. He got done in New Zealand. There was a criminal charge. He didn't turn up for it. He was found in contempt of court, and then he was able to sort of negotiate out of it. He's wanted by multiple jurisdictions for those earlier boiler room scams, but he was very clever. He'd always keep someone else's name on the papers and all of that. And then, he was able to get after he got close to the Cambodians and started doing these much bigger scams, he's much more wealthy now. He was able to get himself a Cambodian diplomatic passport under the alias Ben Smith.
Which I think you've published a photograph of.
We published the passport. We blurred the details.
Course, yeah.
He said in his statement that we were opening him up to financial fraud by publishing his passport, which was pretty ironic to me. But we blurred the number, we blurred the name. He's got a Cambodian diplomatic passport and by the way, Cambodia gives up diplomatic passports to all kinds of fraudsters. That's how it operates. There are estimates that about half of Cambodia's economy is a scam economy, 50% of its GDP.
Wow.
So, and these kinds of people are useful because they help to wash the money. They know how it works. He's an expert in knowing how the British Virgin Islands and all these offshore places work. He's very smart at all of that. And also, he's you can stay one step removed. So if you're taxing Shinawat and you want a $60 million private jet, you don't have to buy it yourself. Mauerberger will buy it for you and then transfer it into a company.
Where is he now? Do you know who he is now?
Well, last thing we heard, he was in his apartment in Bangkok. He has a couple of he's been living in the St. Regis and in the Aman apartments in Bangkok. He has an Aman apartment in Central Park on what's called Billionaires Row, one of the most expensive streets in America. And from what we hear, he recently left Bangkok, but we don't have exact eyes on him. But, yeah.
We're talking to Tom Wright, a New York Times bestselling author, Pulitzer Prize finalist, the co-founder of Project Brazen. Tom, you've worked on a lot of different stories. Fat Leonard was a notable one. Obviously, the billion dollar whale. In the case of the billion dollar whale, some of the reporting you ended up doing showed the connection between the money laundering that was happening through the banks in Singapore. And the Singapore government took a very stern line on that. They do not like, will not accept any kind of laundering and money laundering happening here. Would you expect them to follow up on the reporting that you've done and to go after the money laundering in this particular case? Have they done so already, to your knowledge?
They haven't done so already, but they 100% will. And Singapore was the first jurisdiction in the world to arrest anyone in the 1MDB case, which is not very well known, actually. Yeah. They were very quick. They arrested these guys from this BSI bank, which was a failing private bank that Jolo had basically taken over and then used to move money around. And, I think it's very similar what he did with Capital Asia Investments, what this new case, what Mauerberger has done with Capital Asia Investments. And yes, I'm sure I don't have any inside information on what's going on in Singapore, but I'm sure that the Monetary Authority of Singapore right now is very seriously investigating this.
Has the Singapore government contacted you at all about your reporting?
No, but that's not how I would expect journalism to work. You don't work in league with regulators or authorities. You do your work, you put it out there. We have this saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? Like when you want to make a place better and more equitable, you allow journalists to do their work. You don't threaten them with slap lawsuits or defamation cases. It's on the journalist's part to be truthful and to only report stuff they can verify with 2 sources and documents and all that. But we've done that. So now I would expect, there's going to be some kind of action.
But to Glenn's point, in theory, they would want to follow the money. And if you've been following the paper trail, would you expect, you may not be able to answer this, but would you expect at some point the relevant authorities to contact you and say, we need to see the paperwork?
No, because the authorities have access to all the paperwork. We've shone a light on it, and they can go in there and look at it. The way that I was able to know so much about what's gone on in Singapore is that we were able to get inside sources who walked us through the crazy ways that it happened. I don't want to get too inside baseball for the listeners, but it's like there's a new financial instrument here, or a company way of setting up company here called Variable Capital Company. It was brought in during COVID to attract more funds to the global fund management industry in Singapore, and it's very easy to use that to do dodgy things behind closed doors. And Mass knows that, and it's put out statements saying that. And these guys used the variable capital companies to move the ownership of Thai companies, but using the Singapore structure to do so. And the monies, the unexplained hundreds of millions of dollars that have washed through this very small company. It's just astounding, and I think it's something that everyone's going to hear about in the papers very soon. Well, you can hear about it on whale hunting now, and you can read the Business Times. But there's going to be many, many more stories on this in the coming weeks. It'll blow up. It's just it takes a long time.
Tom, what's the next angle that you're following or chasing on this story? Where does it go from here, do you think?
Well, like I said, the Department of Homeland Security in the U.S. has got a criminal probe into Mauerberger that's ongoing. I'd expect to see potentially what we call asset seizures in the States. If you remember back with Jolo,
yes,
they seized over $1 billion in penthouses, mansions in LA.
And everything from, wasn't it Marlon Brando's Oscar and things like that?
Marlon Brando's Oscar from On the Waterfront.
That he gave to Leonardo DiCaprio.
Which he had to give back. Now, this story is not quite as sexy as that. I don't think Mauerberger's given Leonardo DiCaprio anything, but we do know of a $20 million Amman penthouse in New York. We know about, like I said, $250 million of yachts.
Where are these yachts? Just out of curiosity. In Southeast Asia?
One of them's in Phuket. Yeah,
okay.
They're mainly in Southeast Asia. Although one of them we found was hanging out off the coast of Bodrum, which is where all the Russians who have sanctioned have their the yachts are playthings, but they're also important for doing this money laundering and criminal business. You have the Chinese, the Thais, whoever you're doing the criminal business with comes on the yacht, and they party there. And actually, amazingly, when Thaksin Shinawatra came back from exile before going back to jail just recently, he met with Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And the way he got to the meeting was on a yacht off Koh Lipe in Thailand. The way he got to that meeting was on Ben Mauerberger's yacht. So that's how intertwined all this stuff is, and you couldn't make this stuff up.
You can't make it up.
We have on our website we say truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
And that's what we do for our business. We make TV shows, films, documentaries, fictional TV shows and films based on these true stories, like the $1 Billion Whale. You don't have to make up too much.
Yeah.
Personal question related to this, and then briefly we'll get to $1 Billion Whale. How are you doing in terms of personal safety? Because this is very brave investigative journalism you're doing. You've already talked about the Interpol. Is it the Red Notice they've tried to? Are there certain countries you avoid?
Well, I'm not going to Thailand right now.
Yeah, obviously.
But I think the safety element is you never threaten anyone. You're doing this. You're not doing this because you have a personal grudge against anybody. You're not doing it to annoy the Singapore government by saying, "Look, you've got a money laundering problem here on this issue." You're not doing it to. So you put things out without fear or favor in a way that the readers believe you, and they think, well, this guy is not telling stories, but this is backed up. And like any profession, I've done this for a long time, and I've been doing it for over 30 years, and so I like to think that we're not going to be in danger because we're not. I think when it gets dangerous for people is when they start to say, "Hey, you got to talk to me because if you don't, I'll do X." We've never do that. It's all very much like, look, we want to find out what the truth is. Well, I'm sure Benjamin Mauerberger is not that happy with us right now, but it's also very strange to blame the journalists for things that happen. You did them, and somebody else.
You can see that you
somebody
did
else
them.
leaked them.
Yeah.
The journalists just published them. So we're not a player. And lots of people will try to say the journalist is bought by another. Like, for example, when 1MDB happened, everyone tried to say I was a stooge for Mahathir because Mahathir didn't like Najib and he was leaking the information. But, that's not true. And it can be true that one political side wants to leak things. That doesn't mean that you're part of the most important thing for the journalist to do is to prove that it's true. And we do that by having two sources on everything, by being able to triangulate information between documents and we talk to one's inside source. You need another document to confirm what they were saying, that kind of stuff. And we don't publish this stuff without being truly sure that it's real, because otherwise we would get sued for defamation and it would cost us a lot of money. So
yeah. Tom, let's go back to $1 Billion Whale, and there's been movement in that story over the years. Of course, Jolo is still on the loose somewhere, the key actor in this. But take us to, first of all, what we've seen happen in Malaysia since Najib and his wife were convicted, and then tell us a little bit about what you may know about Jolo and the status of the rest of the case.
Well, Najib was convicted and given 12 years in jail, which then got cut in half by the king. And the wife was found guilty, but she's out on appeal, still on the cocktail circuit, so I don't understand that. But yeah, that's the Rosma Mansour. Mm-hmm. Jolo disappeared into China. Earlier this year, we ran a Where is Jolo campaign where we got the public to sort of write into us, and we found him. Somebody, he tried to check in to a hotel somewhere with a fake Australian passport with a Greek name, but the person was able to recognize his recognize him in person as he checked in. And he said, well, that's Jolo. I don't care whether his passport says he's called Konstantinos.
Yeah. Possibly the least looking Greek person on the planet.
Right? Well, we still haven't found out exactly why he was traveling in China on a fake Australian passport with a Greek name, but I think it's because at one point he had Cypriot nationality, which you're able to purchase. Or you were able to purchase. And I think he has some companies in London under that name. So he needed to be, it's very much like how, Mauerberger still needs to be using his own photo, and it's because you need to be able to get around. So we were able to trace him to a housing complex in Shanghai as well, which is just on the Pudong side, behind the big skyscrapers there. And that's as close as we've got to him. The reasons for why he's protected in China is because, after the 1MDB scandal, he moved to China and he did a lot of corrupt Belt and Road deals, these big infrastructure deals in Malaysia. They were trying to make even more corrupt money so they could fill the holes from the earlier scam. That often happens with scamsters, right? They do big scams. They need to, and so he knows where the bodies are buried as far as Chinese corruption comes into the picture. And so the Chinese government doesn't really want him to go back to Malaysia to face trial, where he would then talk about all of this, which leads us to what's going to happen to Mauerberger, right? Believed to have left Thailand recently, could be in Bangkok, but I think he's left. Will he end up in China? He's been flying to Macau, I think, and he's been involved in all of this Cambodian. The money that comes out of Cambodia is Chinese, so he could end up in China too.
Well, this ties very nicely to a comment from our listener, Tom. Rob says, Tom Wright, he was great in your last interview. This interview is next level. What a topic. This is a movie script plot for Ethan Hunt waiting to happen, which ties in with your moving now into movies and film yourself. I'm guessing the $1 Billion Whale movie, is that coming?
It is. I can't believe he remembers my last interview. It was 7 years ago.
Wow. But my question to you is, $1 Billion Whale movie, where are you at with it? And will Leonardo DiCaprio play himself?
Well, he 100% won't play himself. The reason for that is, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio took lots of things from Jolo, including... He gave them all back in the end. He gave them all back to the Department of Justice, but he took this Oscar, and he had got a Picasso painting and all of this. So I doubt very much he'll play himself.
He'll want to steer clear. Yeah, steer clear of the movie.
Who knows? But I think it's very, very unlikely. But yeah, we have a film script. It's a great script. It's written by a screenwriter who wrote War Dogs, the Jonah Hill movie. So it's in that vein.
Sure.
Who's one of Leonardo DiCaprio's best friends.
Jonah Hill. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing that it reminds me of is when in Molly's Game, Tobey Maguire is played by, is it Jesse Eisenberg?
Yeah.
Good film, by the way.
And
Good
nobody
film.
says, oh, that's Tobey Maguire. You can watch that film and not know that's supposed to be Tobey Maguire, the character played by. So you can do the same thing with $1 Billion Well. You can have a famous Hollywood actor you don't know, name that it's Leonardo DiCaprio, and you. But yeah, so we've got that. We did a podcast which you can listen to on, if you go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, called Fat Leonard a few years ago.
That was a great one.
Well, we smuggled a microphone to Fat Leonard himself, who was he was actually based here in Singapore, lived on Nassim Road.
Yep.
He was a contractor for the U.S. Navy, and he corrupted millions and millions of dollars out of the U.S. Navy, and was given cover by admirals because he would basically organize sex parties for the admirals. That was how it worked.
And give them Rolex watches.
And Rolex watches. And he even corrupted the NCIS, which is the investigative body of the Navy, and the famous TV show on CBS in the US, NCIS.
Yes.
So when they tried to investigate him, the top officer in Quantico was on his payroll, so they couldn't. So we've got a great script for that from Pete Chiarelli, who's was the writer of Crazy Rich Asians. Mm-hmm. So we've got that movie coming along. So these stories are great raw material to make amazing TV shows and films.
Fat Leonard, is he still in California?
Yeah, he was given 12 years in jail.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So in San Diego? In
San Diego, yeah. So what happened to him was, and this is again, truth is stranger than fiction, we smuggled a microphone to him while he was a cooperating witness in the trial of all these other admirals who'd been involved with him. He got bored of being a cooperating witness, cut his ankle bracelet off, went on the run across the border into Mexico, ended up in Venezuela, where he was rearrested trying to fly to Russia. So obviously he got a worse sentence in the end because he'd gone on the run. But yeah, great. That's the podcast is interesting. If you want to listen to that Fat Leonard podcast, and the movie will be even better, I think.
Couldn't recommend it enough. And do get on to the whale hunting website, which I pay to subscribe to because I think all good journalism should be paid for. You should keep up to date with what's happening with Benjamin Mauerberger. It's going to have repercussions for Singapore and the region. Where should they follow the latest news and developments?
You can go on whalehunting.projectbrazen.com.
There you go. Perfect.
Awesome. Tom Wright, thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Money FM 89.3.